Good morning, Garland here. The Tucker Carlson saga thickens as the fascists do what fascists do and go after him. And there's lots more. Morning news. Let's talk. Good morning, all. Good morning. As I get my act together to head for the office, we'll start here. We're going to go with the morning. There's lots going on in the morning news, some interesting things when you get to Tucker Carlson. But firstly, let's start with Nikki Haley. I think this is an interesting story. Haley makes history in Nevada primary. The U.S. presidential candidate Nikki Haley has received the support of just over 30% of registered Republican voters in a state organized primary election in Nevada, right? Here's the thing about it. With frontrunner Donald Trump absent from the ballot, the quote, none of these candidates option was picked by more than 60% of the voters in accordance with state law. Haley was declared the winner, right? Bottom lining is it looks like they're going to hold a party caucus. It looks like Trump is going to get the backing of all 26 state delegates. Let's see. Despite its largely symbolic nature, the rejection of Haley's candidacy was by Nevadans became the latest blow for the former South Carolina governor, her third consecutive loss. Here's the bottom line. So what do we have here? This is why did I choose this story? I think it is of consequence because we have a couple of things going on here. We have Nikki Haley, who's just a warmongering neocon. Nikki Haley is not real. She's not a real candidate. You know what I mean? She's the equivalence of Joe Biden. She's a person who has been chosen by the ruling elite to continue the machinations of empire and the quest for world domination. That's it. Okay. She's going to do what she's told. Right. If you look at her history, it ain't a good one. She's just a person who, seems like she wants to fill her filthy, stinking pockets. Joe Biden. Right. Hillary Clinton. Remember the Clinton Foundation, all of them. Right. So she's just another person who is going to fill her pockets. I've noticed that some of the same Biden backers, right, the Bill Kristols, the warmongers who have no party are like, yeah, Nikki Haley, she's great. She can beat Trump. And so what we see with Bill Kristol and these people is this. They don't have a party. Their ideology is fascism. Their ideology and I was going to say their ideology of war, but one of the tenets of fascism is a commitment to war, a commitment to domination, a commitment to intimidation, a commitment to control, to hate anyone that opposes with them, to brutally and viciously attack anybody who opposes them. Nikki Haley's down with that because she doesn't exist. She's a blank painting for the ruling elite to paint anything they want on it. So they're like, yay, Nikki. And what we see now is this. People are sick and tired of that crap. Let's look at the Republicans, right? But though I'm a lefty and I don't agree with a lot of things that Republicans position, the right-wing position, for the purposes of analyzing politics, I try to be a blank slate. So let's look at this. They've decided that they want Trump. That's it. The Republican Party wants Trump. Now, a lot of people who analyze it or take a position, evaluate that through the lens of Trump. Oh, Trumpism, Trump this, Trump that. I don't. I evaluate it through the lens of politics. I don't see Trump as someone who came into American politics. I see Trump as someone who came out of American politics, someone who was produced by an American political dynamic. The dynamic here is a fascist, warmongering, neocon, whatever term you want to use. They all mean the same thing. Bend of the ruling elite in the United States. And that's what happens. That's fascism. As this system starts to crash, as it starts to come unglued, as this system gets to a point where it no longer can provide for the masses, right? The working class. This system can't. This system has abused the working class, continues to abuse the working class. Fascism happens when the ruling elites contempt and disdain for the working class becomes open and apparent. And they then start to try to recruit various groups within the working class to fight each other. Bonapartism, it's called, right? Hey, we all hate this group, so join us. No, we hate that group, so join us. And what they try to do, whether it's immigration or something for the conservatives, or whether it's, I don't know, rainbow flags or something for the liberals, whatever it is, the ruling elite factions who are fighting try to recruit groups within the masses, within the working classes, to come to the aid of their elitist battles, and ultimately try to get a war and dispense with as many of us as they can, and blow everything to pieces, and then start building back again. And there you go, less useless eaters, right? Nikki Haley is their girl, because she's down whatever they need to do, as long as she gets rich, as long as she gets power. What we're seeing is the Republicans, just like most Americans, had enough, tired, beat down, sick and tired of being sick and tired, that kind of stuff, right? So I think it's a beautiful thing to see Nikki Haley run, and to get and to lose. What were the numbers again? She got 30%, and none of the above. Let me see, 60%. She was doubled. She was lapped by none of the above. Basically, what the Republican voters said is, we'd rather, I'll put it to you like this. As Malcolm X used to talk about the field slave, when someone came to the field slave and said, would you like to run away? Malcolm X, I love this story. It is one of the greatest analogies ever. He said, and he used slavery. He said, if someone goes to the house slave, right, these are the people who are benefiting from the ruling elite, benefiting from the system, right? That's the house slave, right? A lot of times that's the professional class, the white collar class that are living pretty good off of this system, right? They go to the house slave and say, hey, would you like to run away? And the house slave says, why should I run away? I'm doing pretty good off of this system, right? Perfect analogy. They then go to the field slave. That's the rest of us. That's the working class who are getting crushed by the system. They go to the field slave and says, hey, would you like to run away? And the field slave says, well, I'm worked to death. I'm beaten every day. I'm barely fed. I have nothing. Any place is better than here. And that's what the masses of people who are the field slaves are saying. Any place is better than here. And that's what they said in Nevada to Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley says, can I run? Will you vote for me? I represent the system. I represent the ruling elite. And the GOP voters in Nevada said, any place is better than here. Any of the above, none of the above, all of the above, we don't give a damn, as long as it ain't you, Nikki Haley. So that right there, I'm telling you right now, if I'm Nikki Haley, I walk, but she doesn't walk. Let me tell you why. She doesn't walk because of the plan. The plan of the ruling elite is quite simple: to use all manner of lawfare and machinations to take Trump out, right? We're going to charge him, we're going to jail him, we're going to do everything we can to take Trump out. That's their plan. That's why she's sticking in there. She knows the game. The game is to take Trump out and insert her. So boom, there you got Nikki Haley with like DeSantis or John Bolton or somebody, as if it would matter, as her backup, right? They stick Nikki Haley in there. Then Biden runs, because Biden can debate Nikki Haley, because she'll save him. When Biden starts going, there's only one word. American can be summed up with one word, and that word is a Fritz. And Nikki Haley will say, that's brilliant. I agree. Fritz. Who would have ever thought of that? Let me expand on Fritz. That's Nikki Haley. Her job. See, Biden can't debate anybody because his mind is oatmeal. But he can debate Nikki Haley because her job will be on stage. Normally, like CNN or MSNBC, and the job of the so-called debate person who's handling the debate, right? Their job is to prop up Biden. Well, they'll have two people in there, Nikki Haley and whoever it is from God only knows, Brian Stelter or Greg Giamato or somebody. So they'll have two people to prop up Biden as he drools, slobbers, and soils himself They'll probably have to wear a mask just from the smell of him soiling himself on stage, so they'll be able to handle it. So halfway through the debate, when you see Nikki Haley and Rachel Maddow go, oh, what the heck? You'll know that Biden soiled himself, because that's a guarantee. He's going to drool all over the microphone, so they'll have to have a waterproof microphone, and then he's going to soil himself right in front of the world. So Nikki Haley, their job right now, their plan is obvious. Take Trump out using lawfare. Insert Nikki Haley. That way, heads I win, tails you lose. Can you imagine Biden versus Nikki Haley? Whichever one wins, the score will be 1-0. The only people that'll vote will be close friends and family members. The rest of the people will be home. So that's the plan. Keep that in mind. Let's move on to our next. Let's see. Here we go. Oh, I don't see the story I'm looking for, but I'll find it in a second. Oh, here we go. Let's start here. Good old Tucker Carlson. Got a couple of them on Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson. So let's talk about what Tucker Carlson did. He did a terrible, unthinkable thing. He went and he interviewed Vladimir Putin. Now, here's the big problem with that. If you ever look at, like, when Trump or Biden or one of those people interviewed Putin, President Putin, and some Western so-called journalist would interview him, whenever they interview someone who's considered adversarial to the U.S. government, they never ask them questions. They make assertions. The questions go something like that. Since you are the most evil person in the world, since you're murdering everybody in Ukraine, everybody in the world, everybody on the planet, everybody in the universe, since you have fangs and claws, since you are violent and hateful, since you are the most horrific man, you make Hitler seem like a teddy bear. Since all those things are true, what time is it? So what they do is they don't make there's not a question that's going to come towards Vladimir Putin from some Western person. They're going to insert all of their tropes and then pretend as there's a question. The question doesn't even matter. It's going to be, since you are this, and because this, and if they do the same with Trump, they do the same with anybody that's adversarial, considered adversarial. And I'm no Trump fan. Again, I'm a leftist. But anybody that's considered adversarial by the mainstream, by the U.S. government, by the U.S. imperialists, the job of the so-called phony, fake, the so-called press is to attack them and to disguise those attacks, very thinly disguised, as a question. Well, Garland, since you are a horrible individual and you want to eat puppies and slay tiny children, what time is it? You know, the question, they don't care what time is it. What's the, capital of North Dakota? They don't care what the question is. Well, they fear that Tucker Carlson will ask questions. And the questions that he will ask will be related to the assertions made by the U.S. government's megaphone, the so-called media. So now they've made assertions. Putin wants to destroy all of Europe. He wants to take over the world. He wants to reconstitute the Soviet Union. The right question would be, there are assertions that you want to attack NATO countries. Is that true? There are assertions that you want to do this. Are there? So what happens? People get to hear a rebuttal. And that's what we should hear. We should hear someone that says, hey, this is being said. What is your rebuttal? Instead of, everything that's being said about you is 100% true by the government. The CIA is telling the truth. The neocons are telling the truth. NATO's telling the truth. Why do you lie, sir? Why do you lie constantly when all these people just tell the truth all the time? That's the job of the U.S. media. Tucker Carlson is going to do something that the U.S. media doesn't like. And the liberal class will say, well, don't listen to anything Tucker Carlson says, because he's a bad man. You never listen to bad men. Let me tell you real quick. History. I was in law enforcement. A lot of people know this. There are no shortage of instances wherein some guy was accused of, murdering someone. He goes in the cell, and there's somebody else in the cell, and that guy's a lifelong criminal, a thief, a pirate, a ne'er-do-well, right? Lifelong criminal. And the guy's sitting in the cell, and he's like, yeah, I did it. In fact, I buried the body in a park over on 12th and Elm. And yes, here's how I did it. And here's where I put the knife. I threw that in a trash can right outside when I saw the guy. So the guy, confesses everything to his cellmate, right? And his cellmate, being a ne'er-do-well and, certainly untrustworthy, the next day contacts us. Hey, investigators. Yeah, I know everything. The guy told me everything yesterday in the cell, and here's what I'm willing to do. I'm facing 10 years. You knock that sentence down, you give me no jail time, I'll squeal. I'll tell you everything. Really? Yeah. How do we know we can trust you? Easy. I'll tell you where to find the weapon. Go find the weapon there. Then when you find that weapon, come back and we'll make the deal. And we say, sounds fair. You're in for theft. This guy's in for murder. That's a fair trade-off. The family needs closure, etc. We go to the trash can where this guy told us, and there is the knife. Okay, let's talk. Now he gives us everything, the body. We write it down. We make up the case, charge this guy with first-degree murder, and boom, we're good. Right now, think about this though. The person that we got it from is a ne'er-do-well, an untrustworthy guy, but he was telling the truth in that instance. So my point being this. If you don't trust them, if they're the worst person in the world, a history of lying, technically speaking, right, logically speaking, you could have a person that has never told the truth one time in their life, as everything they've ever said has been a lie, and then they could tell the truth once, right? So the idea that I'm supposed to hate or summarily dismiss everything that Tucker Carlson says simply because you don't like the past. Well, I remember one time he said this and this. Fair enough. And he believes this, and you don't agree with that, Garland. Very true. I don't agree with that. So therefore, you should dismiss what he said with Putin. Well, first of all, I ain't listening for him. I'm listening for what President Putin says. Secondly, just because he may have done or said something in the past that I disagree with, just because we have ideological disagreements, doesn't mean that I shouldn't listen to him. That's a ploy, and I don't buy it. I don't care who it is. I listen to him. As I said, I used to go on his show. He seemed like a really nice guy. I disagree with him ideologically on some things, but I like Tucker Carlson because I met him and he seems like a decent human being. And he was always very nice to me when I went on his show. And when I went on his show, people can find it on Fox. When I went on his show, it was to disagree about things, which is fine, right? That's good. To me, that's what you want to do. That makes us smarter. To talk with people that we have disagreements, but we don't have to dislike someone or summarily dismiss everything they say for the rest of their life because we disagree with them. Let's look. Here we go. Tucker Carlson could face sanctions. Sanctions. That's how mad they are. Tucker Carlson's interview with Russian President Vladimir Putin could see the conservative pundit targeted by the EU lawmakers. Oh, man. Current and former members of the European Parliament have told Newsweek, right? He could be in hot water with the EU. They call for the EU to explore imposing a travel ban on Carlson, describing him as a mouthpiece of former President Donald Trump and Putin. Well, first of all, what the hell? Donald Trump's running for president. You're a mouthpiece for Donald Trump. Yeah. So therefore, you can't come to Europe anymore. Well, first of all, from what I've seen in Europe lately, I ain't sure I want to go. But secondly, he's running for president right now, and he's a former president. So now, because they don't like Donald Trump, he's a mouthpiece for Trump. Even if he was a mouthpiece for Trump, which he ain't, but even if he was, you're going to sanction him for that? And Putin. As Putin is a war criminal, yeah, the people who are standing up against Netanyahu, I don't hear them. You know what I don't hear? What's interesting? I don't hear them like, hey, you interviewed Benjamin Netanyahu, therefore we're going to be sanctioned. So you can interview a guy who says at the top of his lungs, he screams, I'm going to commit a genocide. Yes, sir, we're killing them all. Men, women, children, we're wiping them out. Dogs, trees, everybody dies. You can interview that guy, have him on, love him. Joe Biden has a picture hugging him. But if it's somebody that they just don't like, that they disagree with, let me ask you this. If he were to interview one of the Nazis, one of the guys walking around, goose stepping, Sieg Heiling. The other day, Zelensky was photographed, the ostensibly the head of the military for Ukraine. The guy was put out a big photograph on social media, standing in front of a picture of Stepan Bandera, a literal a holocauster of Jewish people and Poles and anybody else that he didn't like, right? So you can interview Zaluzhny, not a problem. Hang out all over Europe. You can literally be a Nazi war criminal, go to the Canadian Parliament, you're going to get a standing ovation, a rousing applause. Yay, there's old Adolf, the guy who was our guy slashing the throats of Jews and Poles and all kind of gay people and you name it. He was stabbing them, bayoneting them, cutting their throats, shooting them in the back of the head, throwing them in ditches and mass graves, all of those things. You go right to the parliament and you're going to get a hug. You're going to get a rousing applause. There's old, Justin Trudeau in blackface screaming about how wonderful you are. But if you do the actual job of a journalist and you go talk to President Putin, you're done. Don't you just love that picture they got of Putin? It's a mean picture. He's mean. In the old, what is the old rappers used to call it? Mean mugging. He's mean mugging. Okay. Putin is a war criminal, and the EU sanctions all who assist him in that effort. It seems logical that the External Action Service examine his case as well. He's assisting him by interviewing him. You can interview Netanyahu as he commits genocide. You can interview literal Zaluzhny wears a bracelet with a swastika on it. He takes pictures with a goose stepping Sieg Highland hero of theirs. But if you go talk to Putin, they don't even know what he said. They have no idea what he said. But what they know is he's probably telling the truth. And that, my friends, is unacceptable. Think about it. These are people who hate their own farmers. Explaining his motive for the interview, Carlson said in the videos. Now, they said his motive, as if this is the only thing he said. Most Americans have no idea why Putin invaded Ukraine or what his goals are now. Well, they left out the rest. You notice how convenient this is? The man said, look, it's my job as a journalist to do this, right? The EU's External Action Service, also known, they ought to name it the Social Network Service, and that way they could just use the SS as an acronym. Okay. Is the bloc's diplomatic arm, responsible for foreign policy. For an individual to be added to the EU sanction list, evidence must be presented to the EAS for review. And so they go on. Luis Garicano, a former MEP, told Newsweek he agreed with Verhofstadt's Field Marshal Verhofstadt, I guess, or something like that, stance. He is no longer a newsman, but a propagandist for the most heinous regime on European soil and the one which is most dangerous to our peace and security. Certainly not the regime of Netanyahu and Benny Gantz, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Smotrich. No. Those guys are fuzzy puppies, as these same people send weapons to people who are shooting civilians with white flags, blowing up tens of thousands of innocent civilians and bragging about it. Hooray, look at us. We're killing civilians. We're going to kill more civilians. Hey, EU, hurry up with those bombs. We got more civilians that are alive, and that's got to be brought to a screeching halt. But it's Russia, the ones who have said consistently, we would like to bring this to a diplomatic end. The people who actually agreed on a diplomatic end to the Ukrainian conflict, and the U.S. came in and said, you can't do it. We don't want it. We want to keep fighting. Those are the evil ones. So there we go. Carlson wants to give a platform to someone accused of crimes of genocide. That is wrong. I just keep thinking the name Benjamin Netanyahu. Yes, sir. So now I guess anyone who and by the way, he's accused of crimes of genocide by whom? By whom? You know what I could do right now? I could say whoever that guy is, Vorstadt, or Field Marshal Vorstadt, or whoever this clown is. I could say, hey, old Field Marshal Vorstadt is involved in genocide. And then what? I'm going to write an article. Field Marshal Vorstadt is accused of crimes of genocide. So nobody in the press. You just accuse somebody of crimes of genocide and then say he's been accused of trying crimes of genocide by you. So therefore, nobody can talk to him. Now, Netanyahu, and including soon Biden, I believe, and Blinken and all these people are accused of, well, I'll put it like this. Somebody went to court to accuse, in California, to accuse Biden and Blinken and all those people of being accomplices in genocide. The judge found that there was sufficient evidence to move forward with the case, but he didn't have jurisdiction. And he was sorry that he couldn't take the case because he didn't have jurisdiction. Bottom line is this. Isn't Biden and Blinken and all of those crews, aren't they now credibly accused of genocide? So you accuse Putin of genocide and then say, well, we've got to punish anybody who talks to him. Courts of law accuse Netanyahu. Courts of law accuse Biden, Blinken, et al. Of genocide, but anybody can talk to them. The hypocrisy, the contradictions are without equal. That's all I can say. Thank you. And here's it. Carlson's interview will make him the first member of the Western media to question Putin since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. He's going to interview him. Americans have a right to know all they can about a war they're implicated in, and we have a right to tell them about it. Oh my God. He added that he had also requested an interview with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky, you know what? So here's the weird thing. It almost sounds like journalism, doesn't it? Hey, we got a conflict going on. There's questions. Why don't we talk to the leaders of both sides? No, you're only allowed to talk to the leader of one side. The other side's evil. You only talk to the leader. The U.S. government, the CIA says, this is the good guy. This is the bad guy. How dare you push back against the CIA? This is an injustice that must not stand. And just to show let's talk about the good guys. Oops. Doggone it. I got to sign in. Hold on. Let's try this. I got to get it. Okay, here we go. Maybe this will help. Interesting. Well, I'm having trouble. I think what's going on is that there's some blocking going on. There we go. All right, let's take a look, peep at this. I finally got it. Look at this. Breaking news. Tucker Carlson has been placed on the Ukrainian government's Mirat kill list. There you go. Tucker Carlson. He's got his face on there. Time for him to go. Now, look at that. So everybody knows that's the one that Daria Dugina, a lot of people that they've killed. At one point, they had a U.S. Senator Rand Paul on there. They've got U.S. citizens on there. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. So these Nazis, the U.S. government supports, have a list, a website. And on that list, they put whoever's they don't like, who goes against their fascist ideology, and then their pledges, the person has to be killed or whatever, and then they put eliminated or something after they take them out. Now, does anybody for 1 second believe that Tucker Carlson, that the U.S. government is not involved in that? We've got two conflicts, both involving, real Nazis, to be quite frank. And in both of them, the U.S. government says we're providing all the weapons for Israel and Ukraine. We're providing all the intelligence for Israel and Ukraine. We're providing everything they need. We're providing all the money for Israel and Ukraine, right? And then Israel says something terrible, and the U.S. says they're on their own. We're not in control of them. Ukraine says, hey, we're going to kill a bunch of journalists. And the U.S. says, hey, we don't have any control whatsoever over them. Imagine that. Imagine somebody works for me and I pay their salary. And let's say it's a restaurant and somebody comes to the owner of the restaurant. Hey, Garland, your one of your waiters came over and cursed at this table and he took the drink of a customer and threw it in their face. And you're the owner of the restaurant. It's called Garland's Eateria. What do you think, Garland? What are you going to do? You got to act. And I say, I don't have any control over that guy. I mean, hey, he's just a person making the decision that he wants to make. I mean, how can I influence him? This thing's out of my hands. Do I own the restaurant? Do I pay his salary? Do I pay his boss's salary? Does everything there, would that restaurant, Garland's Eateria, exist without Garland? No, it would not. It is my restaurant, my employees, everything about it is mine. And then when my employee does something to a customer, and then I argue, I have no control over this restaurant and these employees, they're on their own. That makes as much sense as the U.S. saying that Israel is making decisions about whether or not to have a ceasefire. And that we don't know what's going on with this Mirovet's kill list. I mean, somebody in Ukraine let me go one further. I think Scott Ritter had thought about doing it. I don't know. Tucker Carlson has the money to do it. He should sue the U.S. government. He should sue them. He should say, my tax dollars are paying for this, and they're threatening to kill me, and he should sue. But what we see is, you think Newland, you think Biden and these people are looking at this saying, hey, yeah, that's an American citizen. You're going too far. We can't have that. We've got to respond. We've got to stop that. We're not going to give you money if you keep threatening American citizens. They had Rand Paul on there and they didn't do nothing. Here's the bottom line. Newland, Biden, these people, they hate American citizens. They don't like us. They don't like us. Now, Carlson's a rich guy, but he won't play the game. And so they hate him. And so now that ain't a Ukrainian list. That's a U.S. fascist, imperialist, neocon, whatever you want to call it list. That's not that Ukraine. So it's written in Ukrainian. Who pays for it? Who bought it? Who pays all the bills? In the same way that waiter that works at Garland's Eateria that does something and Garland claims I can't control him at all, that person is what? They are an employee of Garland's Eateria. And so therefore they work for me. And it's absurd, ludicrous for me to claim that I have no control over that. First of all, if I had Garland's Eateria, it's a good thing I don't, because I'd probably be fat because I love to eat. But my point is this. Any way you look at it, it's an absurd assertion to say that someone whose salary you pay has no is not inured to you. Nah. So that's where they are now. You should have known the Mirovet's list. I'm just surprised my name ain't on it. Probably is. I probably get like a shadow list or something. Of course, they're fascists. They probably looked at me and said, "Oh, he's black. He's not human. We can't even put him on the list." The fascists probably have a separate list for like black people or something like that, so they can maintain their apartheid. Because let's face it, they're Nazis and fascists, right? Bottom line, that's that. All right, let's continue. Here's another article that's pretty interesting. Israel. Well, what do you know? So what happened? Israel's claim against UN relief agency lack evidence. The Daily Beast also obtained a copy of the Israeli dossier, similar to Channel 4 reported Tuesday, that it includes little evidence to back up Israel's allegations against UNRWA employees, right? An Israel dossier that more than a dozen countries have cited to justify cutting off funding to the United Nations Palestinian Refugee Agency provides no evidence that a small number of key UNA body employees were involved in October 7th. The dossier merely states that, quote, from intelligence information, documents, and identity cards seized during the course of the fighting, it is now possible to flag around 190 Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist operatives who served as UNRWA employees. More than 10 UNRWA staffers took part in the events of October 7th, reads the six-page dossier, which Israel provided to donor countries, including the agency's top contributor, the U.S., shortly after the ICJ handed down an interim decision, right? Now, let's talk about that for a second. Uh, uh, Channel 4 noted Monday that all 13,000 of UNRWA's Gaza employees' names have been checked against the UN terrorism list, and as recently as last May were vetted and approved by Israel. Right? The UNRWA quickly fired 9 of the employees named by Israel. On Monday, the UN Secretary General established an independent review group to assess whether the agency is doing with everything within its powers, right? Blah, blah, blah. The Daily Beast and Channel 4 have a copy of the document. They say basically it involves little evidence. Let's talk about that for a second. So what happened? On the day that the ICJ said that it looks like Israel's involved in miscreant activity in the form of genocide, Israel then said, aha, we knew it. We knew it. Some of these UNRWA aid people, the Unrwa aid people, were involved in October 7th. Now, well, here's what's interesting. Between October 7th and the date that the ICJ made their ruling, Israel didn't figure that out. Isn't it interesting? Months go by. Hey, any problem with Unrwa? Nah, I don't know. Yeah, well, yeah, they're just doing whatever. We got to try to stop them from getting food and water to the Palestinians, but they're doing their thing. You sure? Yeah. Unrwa, who knows what, right? All of a sudden, the ICJ says, "Hey, Israel's involved in genocide." Damn that Unrwa! They've been involved. All of 30,000 of them. They fought with the. Isn't it convenient that all this time passes and they couldn't figure out that some of these people were involved in October 7th until suddenly, when they get accused of genocide, they're like, well, we need to stop aid, because all aid to the Palestinians, because we got a dozen people that we just figured this out. Okay. The US then, and all of these other donors then say, oh my God, Israel, you have accused them of that? Yeah, we're stopping giving them money. That's it. They've been accused. They have been accused. Well, how about this? Netanyahu and his crew are accused of genocide. They're accused of genocide, right? So, and they're accused by the United Nations, the International Court of Justice. So let's put these two things side by side. Out of 13,000 employees, the group that is accused of genocide says there's a dozen of these guys or so out of 13,000 that were involved in October 7th. It took us 3 months to figure that out, right? The people that are accused of genocide say they were involved in October 7th without a smidgen of evidence. No evidence whatsoever. They make their allegations. And the U.S. says, well, they've been accused of being involved in October 7th. I mean, we can't very well give these people money. October 7th was an abomination. Probably the worst thing that's happened in the history of humankind is October 7th. I mean, hey, if Israel makes an allegation and an assertion against them, we gotta, we haven't seen what they got as far as evidence yet, but we got to stop giving money to the UN relief agency because Israel has made it clear, hey, we got an allegation that they're involved. Okay, all right, that's what you're going to do. That's now the standard, right? A standard, a consistent standard, a consistent set of standards. If you get an allegation, albeit unsupported, that somebody's involved in something, you can't provide money to whoever is being accused, right? Then the ICJ says, after an exhaustive investigation after exhaustive investigations and documentation by a sovereign nation, South Africa, evidence was presented, deliberated upon by an unbiased group of judges, what appeared to be mostly a non-biased group of judges. I'm sure they were biased, but they were overwhelmed by the evidence. And they say Israel was accused of genocide. Well, by the standards that I just related, the U.S. has to stop giving them money, don't they? They got to say, well, we got a credible allegation. There wasn't even a credible allegation against the UN Unrwa, right? No credible allegation with no evidence. So here we have an allegation that is not credible with, I was going to say, a dearth of evidence, paucity of evidence. except I'd be wrong because there's no evidence. It's not like, well, they don't have much evidence. They presented nothing. Their evidence is it is because I say it is. Hey, those guys are a bunch of terrorists. Oh, okay. You got any evidence? Yeah, not really. Okay, well, we got to act on that. Meanwhile, the ICJ says, here's 84 pages of document. We've deliberated, we reviewed it, we blah, blah, blah. It looks like Israel's involved in a genocide. Are you going to stop? You need to stop giving them money. Oh, no, they haven't been, we don't think there's, what did they say? In this case is without merit. It's meritless. Why would you look at a case, a measly 84 pages of documentation, literally videotaped confessions by the leaders of the country. Hey, look at those people over there. What are they? Innocent civilians? Yeah, let's kill them all. We're going to kill all the innocent civilians. Genocide, that's what we're going with. We're genocide. That's our thing. We're going to do genocide. That's all we're going to do is genocide. That's what we're up to today. What are you guys doing? Genocide. Why? Because it's Tuesday. What else do you do but genocide on a Tuesday? That's what they're being facetious, but you have video after video of people saying we're going to commit genocide, and you have them actually committing a genocide. And the U.S. says, well, based on the meager amount of evidence that's presented, which certainly seems meritless, we're not going to stop giving money to Israel. And when Israel says, yeah, those guys are terrorists, we don't have any evidence. Oh, well, my God, why didn't you say so? They're terrorists. Cut off money. Cut off money to the people who are being genocided, to the people who are being starved, to the people who are being pushed to die of thirst. Cut off money to them. But you can't cut off money to a bunch of guys who are walking around goose-stepping with a tattered, dog-eared copy of Mein Kampf in their backpack and like a picture of Stepan Bandera. You wouldn't want to cut off money to them. You wouldn't want to cut off money to people who say we're going to genocide these people. The only money that the U.S. and the EU can find to cut off, the only people they can find to cut off money to are the people who are being genocided. That's all you need to know about fascism. That's it. You know that about fascism, you know everything. Let's go with one more story here. Europe brought to its knees by U.S. policy on Ukraine. Europe has been brought to its knees due to the stance taken by the U.S. on the conflict. A chief advisor to Viktor Orban said, Balázs Orban, who is not related to the prime minister, insisted at the launch of his new book on Tuesday that the policy of blockism or the creation of geopolitical alliances isn't the solution. We see that Europe has been basically brought to its knees due to the attitude of the U.S. towards the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Here's all I have to say. Exactly as planned. Read John Bolton's book. What does he say? Europe is considered the second largest economic threat to the U.S. empire behind China. The difference is China's pretty smart. European leaders are vassals. European leaders are traitors. European leaders are quislings. So when the U.S. says to the European leaders, hey, we want you to destroy your economy, come on, what do you think Olaf Scholz is going to push back on that? You think von der Leyen and the rest of these friggin' Nazis are going to say, no, we're not going to destroy our own economy. Why, that would hurt the working class people. They probably might get upset. The farmers would be in the street before you know it. We can't possibly do that. No, they're like, yeah, let me at them. I hate those little stinking working class people. And what about the filthy farmers? Death to the farmers. That's where they are. That's what they are, where they are. The Europe has leaders that despise them. They despise them. They don't work for them. They can't stand them. And has Europe been brought to its knees? Exactly as planned. Exactly as planned. And you're not allowed to hear anything that they don't say. You're not allowed to hear that they don't approve of. You're not allowed to hear. I will bet you this. They will fight to try to stop people from, they will stop to try to fight people from, hearing what Vladimir Putin has to say. Oh, here's an interesting one. Look at this. You always get these kinds. ICJ is Hamas. Everybody's Hamas. I'm Hamas. The ICJ is Hamas. Who isn't Hamas? Leave that guy on there, right? Leave that guy on there. Great. I want that because you know what? It makes my point of absurdity. I love to have something really absurd and ludicrous to make my point. The guy's, some stooge or whatever, right? Who's, some probably, paid person, go on, right, to go online and to go on this channel or whatever channel. But I'm glad he's there because let's face it, every time you add a couple more people, it helps the algorithm, right? So good, great. Thanks for him. Thanks for helping round out the crowd today there, Puppet. But my point being this, what I like to see, to me, as a person who tries to use logic and reason to make my points, is someone that makes ludicrous and absurd points. I couldn't make my point any better than somebody who says the ICJ is Hamas. Think about this. They literally have one of the judges on the ICJ is Israeli, has a history of like supporting and voting for everything that the right wingers, that the Smotriches and the settlers want, right? And even that person voted against him. But here's what we know. That guy, according to them, is Hamas. You're a Hamas. Who else is Hamas? You know what it is now? You know what it is with these people? The whole world is Hamas. All of the young people that are in the streets, they're Hamas. You know what it is? It's the same thing as this. It's like this. If you disagree with the neocons, if you're not down with John Bolton and his crew when it comes to Ukraine, you're a Putin supporter, right? You're a Putin lover. You're supporting Putin. If you disagree with the anti-China hate group, oh, you're a supporter of the CCP, right? It is the cry of those who have no logical, reasonable argument for what they have to say. Like people like us, what do? We have a discussion. People like us, we want to understand things. People like us, we're going to read, we're going to figure it out, who's right, who's wrong. We're going to think these things through. We're going to use our brains. We're going to use our intellect, right, to figure out what's going on. We're going to read, the people like that, ICJ is Hamas. You know what those Hamas, you know what those are? Those are the people who were saying, don't do your own research. No, you'll die if you do your own research. What you want to do, you want to go to the Washington Post, you want to go to the New York Times, you want to go to CNN, MSNBC, you want to go to the ruling elite and the mouthpieces of the intelligence communities. And you want to find out what's going on from them and just repeat that over and over. And make sure you say something really stupid and brainless and mindless like ICJ is Hamas. Okay, great. And anybody who says, I'm kind of wondering, I'd like to find out. I'm not sure about this Ukraine thing. I'd like to do some research. I'd like to look at history and breakup of the Soviet Union, the 2008 NATO meeting in Budapest, 2014, the Maidan coup. I'd like to research these things so I can get a historical context and try to figure out how we got where we are today. Oh, you're a Putin lover. That's the mentality, because they don't mean you're a Putin lover. And that clown didn't mean the ICJ is Hamas. All they were saying is, I don't have an argument. I don't know what to say. I have no logical, credible argument. I got no way to defend my position. It is rhetorically indefensible. It is morally indefensible. I got nothing I can say. So, oh God, what are you going to say, man? What do you got to say? ICJ is Hamas. Can we go with that? Yeah, there we go. That makes sense. It makes as much sense as the U.S. empire saying Israel has made a claim that members of the UN Relief Association are members of Hamas. They got no evidence. They haven't submitted any. The only thing they submit a document that basically says that, hey, let me see your documentation. Yeah, these guys are members of Hamas. All right, you have documentation. Oh, man, you kidding me? That's all I got is documentation. Volumes of the documentation that says that these members of the UNRWA are Hamas. Great, give it to me so I can look through it. They take out a pen and pencil. Members of the UNRWA are members of Hamas. 20 of them. No, wait a minute. That's a little high, isn't it? Should we go with 12? 12. Cross that out. You have an eraser. Oh, crap. I did it in ink. Okay. 10. or 10. Can we go with 10? Yeah, 10. 10 members are members of Hamas. There you go. There's your evidence. And the person sitting there like, you just wrote that down. I asked you for evidence. You picked up a piece of paper and you literally wrote what you just said and presented to me as it was evidence. Oh, what are you? Oh, so you're a member of Hamas too, huh? You're not going to accept my evidence uncritically? Clearly, you're a member of Hamas. ICJ is a member of Hamas. Garland's a member of Hamas. All the YouTube people are members of Hamas. Jimmy Dore, Jackson Hinkle, anybody, the whole world. You know what? I went to D.C. There was 400,000 protesters. All members of Hamas. Everybody's a member of Hamas. Isn't that great? Isn't that again, it shows you the stupidity of these people, that somebody would come into my chat and write ICJ is Hamas and not understand that I was going to expose them as a blithering idiot and fry them on the spot. Not a wise move. But where's my ICJ is Hamas guy? Come on back, man. Come on back. We need more. Look, I'm telling you right now, I got to say this. The guy who put ICJ is Hamas is my favorite person of the day, because I'd like for them to just like keep putting stuff up. I can go on for hours with those kind of ludicrous and absurd statements, but I can't really do that. But, you know, because I got to go to work. I got things to do. Unlike the ICJ person, as a Hamas person who's already at work, okay? They're sitting somewhere in Tel Aviv in a basement with 1,000 other guys who have their computers open, who are like, hey, what's going on? Oh, I think Garland Nixon's on. Great. You, and you. Get in the chat right now. What should I write? Just write ICJ as Hamas. You sure? I mean, come on. I'm going to get my ass fried if I do that. Shut up. I'm paying you. ICJ as Hamas. Here, it's already cut and pasted on your computer. I want you to go to 50 different YouTube shows, and everyone just keeps saying ICJ is Hamas. And the guy's like, but it's going to make me look like an idiot. Yeah, okay, well, of course, that ain't what's going to make you look like an idiot. Being an idiot is going to make you look like an idiot. Now shut up and write ICJ is Hamas, like you're told. Okay. ICJ is Hamas. No, don't write it. Cut and paste it. Okay, got it. Cut and paste it. ICJ is Hamas. Ooh, I showed that Garland Nixon in his chat. Put those bastards in their place once and for all. That's what we're up against, guys. We're up against this. So the bad news is that these people are fascists. The good news is fascists are really stupid. They really are really stupid. I'm not saying that from a perspective of intellectual computing power. Right? A person can be book smart and stupid. We all know that, right? We all have friends who are like book smart and they couldn't change their tire if you gave them 10 hours of instruction. This is a lug wrench. This is a lug. Lug wrench, lug. Okay, what do I do with that? You take it off. Okay, and they start turning it the wrong way. No, it's righty tighty, lefty loosey. Okay, but if I'm turning it, which way is right and which way is left? Is it my right hand? You just want to slap them. We know the type. The idiots, the brilliant idiots. Okay, there you go. That's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with people that are really, really stupid, that fascism presents itself. Ideologue presents itself as stupidity because it's so rigid. It's involved in rigid thinking, right? An intellectual, I consider myself an intellectual, not because I'm the smartest person in the world, but because of how I get to my conclusions. It is almost a scientific process to which I come to my conclusions. And the hard work that I do, mental often, trying to not let my ideological inclinations affect the outcome of my thoughts. Right? Not what I was brought up to believe religiously, not what my country brings me up to believe, my culture. That has nothing to do with coming to a conclusion based on the facts that I can use, based on the historical data that I can use, right? Based on my intuitions. I'm a person who will go by, that just don't feel right. That's an intuition. We use all of those things together to come to a conclusion, and we can come to a more accurate conclusion, at least a plausible conclusion. It might not be accurate, but it'll be plausible. What I ain't going to write is ICJ is Hamas. You got to love those kind of people. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Don't forget, I got to run. So it's funny, when my daughter was a little thing, she used to always say, Daddy, I don't got none. It was always got, right? Luckily, she ended up with a college degree, so she doesn't do that anymore. I'm the idiot now. Okay, so bottom line is this. Thanks a lot. Everybody, make sure you sign it. Make sure you mercilessly pummel the like button. Number one. Number two, make sure you share this on all your social media platforms, since I ain't on most of your social media platforms. Follow me on Telegram. Follow me on Facebook, stuff like that. You can't follow me on X because people like me are too dangerous for X. I've come to that conclusion. Far too far. X is like, no, we can have all kinds of guys. Alex Jones is back on X. Alex Jones is back on X, which I think he should be, right? So Alex Jones is back on X. Garland Nixon ain't back on X. Why? Because Garland Nixon is a very dangerous man. You know, Alex Jones rants a lot. Oh, the NWO is the New World Order is trying to get us, blah, blah, blah. I ain't saying he's right or wrong. That ain't my point. My point is he's a bit of a showman, and they like that. The system likes a showman who makes a lot of noise. They want him back on. They don't want a guy who's going to sit back and point these things out in a way that makes sense, who's going to give you a historical context, who's going to do a show where I bring up different articles and I point out what the criminality of Amos Hochstein and all these things. They can't have that. So a person like me is really dangerous to the system. They hate me. I am convinced that YouTube is really holding back my numbers, because I'll look and I've got like 65,000 viewers, and I'll look at my YouTube page and it'll say, you got another 1,000 viewers this month, 1,100 viewers this month, just like 1,100 viewers the last month and 1,100 viewers the month before. And I'm like, well, that's weird, because YouTube says I got 1,000 viewers, but in actual number, I only got 100 or 200. Why the hell am I still been sitting at the same number for the last 8 months when people are like constantly joining? And then people are constantly saying to me, you know, it's weird because I keep getting unsubscribed. That's the game, man. You know who's dangerous by who the system goes after, because I don't have a dog in the hunt. I don't trust this system. I don't believe in it. I think it's a bunch of lies, and I think it needs to be exposed. So people like me are not allowed to talk. And I imagine Tucker Carlson, there's going to be a tidal wave of activity, the system attacking Tucker Carlson. There'll be CNN, MSNBC. Wouldn't surprise me if Fox, because Fox is a fraud. People like, oh yes, I'm going to Fox News. They're going to try to direct you to war against China, war against Russia, war against, Israel's right about everything. Fox News is CNN. You know what they are? It's like taking a coin and flipping it over. One side's head, one side's tails. It's the same coin. That's CNN, MSNBC, and Fox. All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. I got to get out of here. Got to make a run for the border. But share this on all your social media platforms. Peace. I'm out.